All right, what's up? Welcome in. This is the Slate, a DraftKings show. We do weekdays at 5 Eastern. Brendan Glasheen joined today by Geoff Ulrich and Matt Meiselman, both DraftKings contributors. You can catch their work over on DK Nation and also all of our DraftKings platforms. We have you on YouTube, we have you on Twitch, and also on Twitter stream. So great to have you. Thanks for stopping by. We got to react to everything from yesterday, week 2 in the NFL. We're going to react to week 3 betting lines. Meiselman, I'm going to be quicker today. We're a little slow last week. We got to go rapid fire, especially with the 3-person booth. Just knee-jerk thoughts to the betting lines, in particular, the spreads. And then we will get to Monday Night Football, Packers and Lions. It feels like a bounce-back spot for Green Bay, but I don't know. Maybe we can get stupid, have some fun. Jamal Williams, revenge game. I don't know. We'll get into it. So those 3 things are how we will, and also all these injuries at quarterback. That to me is a big story from yesterday. We can also dive in. Questions, comments, concerns, they're all welcome. Gentlemen, hi. Geoff, what's up?
Not too much, man. Having a good Monday here. Excited for a little bit of beat down here for the Packers tonight to watch. And yeah, just looking at this Millie Maker winning lineup. It's pretty interesting. A little bit of a game stack in there with Tampa Bay stacking. And then we got Derrick Henry, Tyler Lockett combined. So it's kind of a cool little lineup.
Yeah, Tom Brady's in it too, which is I find really cool and interesting that he continues to help people make a lot of money for such a long time. It's really nice. Yeah, look, I think that's a good place to start. Looking at yesterday from a daily fantasy perspective, Matt Meiselman, your reaction to this winning build. You were writing something up earlier today. To me, we discussed this last Monday, another situation where you didn't need, I know Derrick Henry's a stud, he's 7% owned, but a situation where you don't have to have the chalky running back.
Yeah, you definitely don't. Najee Harris not in this lineup, Chris Carson not in this lineup, and also no one from the Chargers or Cowboys. That's really the biggest thing. Or like I would think most of the lineups played at least one player from that game. That was clearly the chalk game, and the winning lineup didn't have anyone because that game was only, I think, 17-14, and no one really got there. Mike Williams was good, and that was really about it. A couple other guys were decent, but no one was great besides him. So Cooper Kupp, clearly a standout at receiver. Derrick Henry, even more clearly the standout at running back. So, yeah, it stands out to me just how contrarian this lineup was. Like Brady was a little bit of the chalk, and Kupp was popular. Gronk was somewhat popular. And that's really it. And a lot of the higher-owned players at all of the positions didn't really get there.
Yeah, folks really did buy in on Tampa Bay against that suspect Atlanta defense. Geoff, Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 1 now at this point. Are we sold on 2 weeks with Matt Stafford?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, 19 targets over 2 weeks. It's just so much more volume than Robert Woods is getting. Woods is going to have his weeks too when, he's just open downfield more and Stafford starts tossing to him. But it's probably creating a really good buy low opportunity on Robert Woods, but you actually absolutely have to label Cooper Kupp as the number 1 option. He's getting used all across the field. His yards per catch is up, everything about it. He was too cheap last week. I really regret not playing him myself. Quite frankly, I've debated it, but kind of tried to go a little bit contrarian there. That was the chalk you needed to have. And then if you go back there, Glass, just one really interesting thing about this lineup too. He played, the person who won this played Tom Brady, chalky quarterback, right? Or one of the more owned quarterbacks, but look who he paired him with. Gronk is up there a little bit, but then also Leonard Fournette. So he went with the lower owned Tampa stack. And again, you can play these popular quarterbacks, but if you want to get a little bit contrarian with them with your stacks, you play them with not, most people would have stacked Tom Brady with a wide receiver, I guess is my big point there. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting build, and it has got a lot of things to like about it just from a, strategy standpoint.
Sure. I think matchups interesting. Also, not many, with the exception of Marvin Jones, you look up and down here, not many situations where these players had bad matchups. These are pretty favorable matchups for a lot of these players, and you consider who they went up against. The Marvin Jones play, where do you think the thinking was there? 4,700, just someone to wedge in at that point?
Yeah, no, definitely probably just was left with Marvin Jones in the flex, and also probably playing for some garbage time points there. Garbage time came through for Jacksonville in week 1. Marvin Jones does find the end zone quite a bit. He's got a really good touchdown rate. So probably just popped off a little bit as like the best play in that range. That was a bit of a dead range. I think also he was probably trying to pair Rondale Moore and the Cardinals defense together for a little bit of a double dip there. So probably wanted to stick in that range, and Marvin Jones was probably just the best play. And again, prolific touchdown scorer, Marvin Jones. So,
and Tyler Lockett's been fantastic, Meiselman. Like this is DK Metcalf got a lot of the love season long and just that marriage between the two. But I think we forget, like, Lockett and Metcalf, that they have a good chemistry. They don't really care who gets the share or the credit. They've got a pretty good thing going on. Metcalf really, I think we're forgetting though, like Metcalf does, well, he has more of a higher ceiling than a Lockett long term. DK Metcalf is their number 2. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I've said for a while, Lockett is the Seahawks' best receiver. Metcalf is their best athlete and clearly has the potential to turn into the best receiver in the NFL, but he's not there yet. Lockett is much more polished, better route runner, better hands for sure. And it's interesting here pairing it with Henry. So that's kind of like a mini stack within this lineup. I just want to go back to Brady quickly.
Sure.
One of the things that people should consider when building lineups, and it seems like this lineup did for sure, is that depending on the quarterback, you can stack different players. So Brady has been known to spread the ball around, and you can basically pair him with anyone on his team. Like Brady can score 30 to 40 fantasy points with actually none of his receivers being that great. And that's sort of what happened with the Bucs-Falcons game. Mike Evans actually was his top scorer, but Brady can have 40 points while no one on the team even gets to 30. That's not true for a lot of other quarterbacks. Like Ben Roethlisberger, for example, he's more reliant on his receivers because he throws a lot of shorter passes and they're going to rack up PPR points too quickly, where like you need the receivers in there if Ben's going to have a big game. And then there are other quarterbacks who go to their go-to guy a lot more. Like if Josh Allen's in the winning lineup, Stephon Diggs is almost certainly in the winning lineup.
Sure.
It's interesting to see Rondell Moore here too, because normally Kyler goes right with Hopkins, and it's kind of hard for a Cardinals receiver to do that great without Kyler making the winning lineup. It should be said that Kyler did put up 38 points, but I would imagine most of those people had DeAndre Hopkins, who caught an early touchdown, but then didn't do anything the rest of the game, finished with 15. So I think that's probably a main reason why you don't see the Cardinals as the winning stack, because from an optimal lineup standpoint, like the best lineup you could have made with a quarterback and a receiver for the value is Kyler Murray with Rondell Moore. But because a lot of those Murray lineups had Hopkins, I think the Brady ones ended up winning out.
Just love seeing Cordero Patterson in a winning, well, not a winning build, but top 5 finish.
0.6% owned. Yeah.
Jeff, they figured out Cordero Patterson, the Atlanta Falcons. Congratulations to the Falcons. They're doing something right.
Oh, man, I was so just about played Cordero last week. I just wanted to believe. I always want to believe in Cordero, but it just never happens. And I just felt like it's another time they were going to lift the ball off like, Charlie Brown and Lucy, and I'd be flat on my butt. But it actually happened. They used them as a receiver. They kept using him as a running back in the red zone. It's smart. It's really smart. The guy is such a good, versatile player. He's still explosive, even though he's getting up there. But yeah, guy to keep an eye on, man. I mean, Atlanta really doesn't have any running backs. Mike Davis has been a journeyman his entire career. So
yeah, and Matt makes a good point too. When you have a slate with Mahomes and Jackson playing at 8:00, you have Rodgers tonight. We think he'll bounce back. We'll get to Monday Night Football. See a lot of you commenting and asking questions about tonight's game, DFS, and also betting perspectives for Lions at Packers. But Brady was a guy that stood out, and that's why I think the ownership makes some sense. I'm surprised about the Gronk ownership, but we use this contest as a springboard as we work towards week 3. Lots and lots of news in the last hour or two about quarterbacks. That was the story yesterday. It was not a good day to be a quarterback. But I mean, most of these guys that are banged up, Dalton, Tua, Wentz, I'm forgetting other ones, Derek Carr, but Gruden thinks he's going to play this week. But Tyrod Taylor, these are all guys who have been hurt before. Like, these are dudes who have issues. And Jeff, I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday. The Indianapolis Colts experiment with Carson Wentz, it's already a disaster. They're 0-2, and the quarterback can't stay on the field.
I mean, it was a disaster back in the beginning of August when he got hurt, and he didn't get vaccinated, and he missed time for COVID, and it's just spiraled, right? I mean, Anyways, it's not good. I really doubt he plays next week. If it's both ankles, I mean, I don't even know. What are they going to do? Wheelchair him out there? But it's not looked good. They couldn't squeak out a win against either team. Wentz hasn't even looked that bad. He is getting sacked a lot again. He's up there in league leaders and taking sacks, which is Carson Wentz's thing, and it's obviously not helping with the injuries. So all those quarterbacks, like you mentioned, Glash, they're all banged up. Some of them might play, some of them might not. It's creating the most interesting opportunity is definitely going to be with the Bears and Justin Fields. some people talking about Eason in a weak Tennessee offense. I can kind of see it. I'm actually interested in Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is a guy who will run around the goal line. He could easily score 2 rushing touchdowns. It's a good matchup against Vegas too. So I think Brissett could be like a sneaky play next week. But Fields definitely the most interesting of all the backups for sure.
Of course, in Meiselman, Houston plays Thursday against Carolina, short week. So they've got to figure out that situation. If it's Davis Mills, the 3rd round pick this year. Meiselman, any thought? What jumps out to you with all this quarterback injury news, if you have one?
So mine is more from a betting perspective, where I think there's a significant overreaction going on in the Raiders-Dolphins game, and we're starting to see it correct back. So when that line opened pre-week 2, the Raiders were -1 at home against the Dolphins. That line moved all the way up to 5.5. And I think that is only in small part due to the Tua injury, and in larger part due to the Dolphins struggling in week 2 and the Raiders being 2-0, beating both the Ravens and Steelers, which, like, it's 2 games. And, you know, if let's say the Cubs beat the Yankees 2 games in a row, we wouldn't be saying like, wow, the Cubs are so great. But football, we don't have that many games to look at. So we just like assume that the team is really good. And I think the reason the line's going back the other way, in part, is because people realize, like, okay, like this was an overreaction to make the Raiders 5.5 point favorites. Now it's down to 4 and maybe even 3.5 on the last update. I know it was kind of
it's not up. It's actually down. They took it down as of
off
right
the
now.
board. Okay, so that also may have to do with Derek Carr's status, right? So like
Yes.
that could be why it's off the board. But yeah, Jacoby Brissett, like, do we know that he is a significant downgrade from Tua Tagovailoa? Like, I don't know that at this point in their respective careers there's that much of a difference between those guys. Mm-hmm. And then I think, Geoff, I think it was you, right, who was on Jacob Eason as maybe as good as Carson Wentz preseason. Like, how good is Carson Wentz? Does this even really matter either?
Yeah, the Titans defense, agreed. I mean, Titans defense has just been, you know, you're able to pass on them. And I'm not super high on Eason as a play, but my God, he's only 4K on DraftKings. And he's just, you know, he throws 2 touchdown passes, you pretty much get there. So yeah, definitely, like, if that's Colt, I think that Colts line probably gets to 6 or 6.5 by the end of the week. I'm actually surprised it's not there yet, but Carson Wentz hasn't been ruled out yet either. So I think once that happens, you will see this line get to close to a touchdown, and then I'll be very interested, because I don't think it's a downgrade. I think the Colts may even just play it a little bit safer, which I think is good for them, because, you know, whatever they've been doing the first 2 weeks hasn't really worked anyways. They'll probably take a more approach. This defense is attackable. Maybe this is the game Jonathan Taylor gets going. Yeah, Colts, even at +5.5, I still don't think I'd be on the Titans.
Okay, that's a way we can segue now into week 3 spreads and get our thoughts. Clearly, we just gave some with this quarterback news. Geoff, we did this last Monday. We're just going to go game by game, rapid fire, keep it moving. It was more on me last week, to be fair. I was rambling a bit. Meiselman was very, very succinct and on point. So we'll go through each game. Some of them aren't here, like Miami and Vegas, because, well, the quarterbacks are broken. So they've been taken down by our friends at the DK Sportsbook. So we'll start Thursday night. Geoff, we'll go to you first. Carolina and Houston. Carolina's a 7.5 point favorite. The 2-0 Carolina Panthers.
I can't take Sam Darnold as a 7.5 point road favorite. I know it's Davis Mills. Davis Mills was a good college quarterback. He's looked terrible in the pros so far, but I'm still taking Houston here with the points. It's just too many points.
Meiselman?
I'm sort of on the same page. I'll keep it really brief because I know virtually nothing about Davis Mills. But yeah, I mean, if I have a lean here, it's the Texans. Probably an overreaction to the Panthers playing well against the Saints and playing well against the Jets. But yeah, it just, like, this feels like it's too high, but I really don't know because I don't know much about Mills.
Darnold certainly scares you, but I would look at this situation now and just keep in mind Brandon Cooks might be the best receiver Carolina faces in the 3 weeks they've played, because the Saints have no one. And then opening week against the Jets are the Jets. You know, Corey Davis is still trying to figure it out there, and the quarterbacks there are still trying to figure it out. As we saw yesterday, Zach Wilson, poor guy. Moving on. Arizona, 2-0 Arizona at Jacksonville. Meiselman, we'll go to you first. Jags are getting 7.5.
Yeah, this feels too high also, but I'm a little gun shy after saying the same thing with Jaguars Broncos last week. There's going to be a point in the year where Trevor Lawrence starts playing well. I don't know when it's going to happen. So I think there's just a lot of uncertainty with that team.
Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the points here as well. Over a touchdown. Look, Cardinals defense, they kind of just like that many points to Minnesota and Kirk Cousins really has me gun shy here. I think at the very least, with the pace the Cardinals play at, I think you'll probably see Jacksonville at least push to cover this in a garbage time situation. So I can't take the Cardinals to cover that many points right now.
This has been a rough stretch for Arizona from a traveling standpoint. They were in Tennessee, back across the coast. They play against the Vikings. They go back the other way. If I have that right, I'm pretty sure they were in Tennessee to open the season, right? So there's a lot of travel here these first couple weeks.
It is. That's a good point too. Yeah, absolutely. Not a great,
I don't love
start.
Yeah. I don't love it, but it's big for Kyler because I think there's something to monitor with Kyler here early in the season. We'll go to Saints and Patriots. Saints kind of, they come back down to earth a bit after Carolina beats them, and the Patriots get their first win with Mac Jones at quarterback. Geoff, Patriots are 3-point favorites at home.
Oh, I love this spot, man. Absolutely love it for the Patriots to give me the home favorite here. Jameis Winston, yeah. You kind of saw. I mean, the rose was off the bloom. He didn't run like a madman so hot in the red zone and stuff like that, and on end zone passes. The Patriots defense is really good. They've been one of the best units in the NFL over the first 2 weeks. And I know the opponents haven't been great, but the opponent isn't great here. They're going to stuff Alvin Kamara. They're going to force Jameis Winston to beat him. Mac Jones is looking really good. Damian Harris is going to run the ball. This is too short, man. Take it now, because this might not even get up because people just still doubting the Patriots. The Patriots are a good team right now.
Matt?
I'm kind of on the same page with Geoff again, although I'm a little more inclined to think the line's fair. It did open Patriots -1, so moving to -3 certainly justified in my mind. So maybe this line should go slightly higher, but yeah, I mean, the Patriots are a better team. I'm just not sure if they're better by enough to say like -3 is far too low. It probably is pretty close to fair.
Yeah, I think it's just about right. Just about right. I would agree. Moving on.
You guys giving New Orleans too much credit, man.
They did beat the Packers pretty handily.
Famous Jameis going to show up. That's all luck, man.
Jameis in Foxborough. That'll be interesting. Yeah. In that defense. But I'm not going to read too much into the Patriots destroying the Jets. We'll be fair on that note.
That's fair.
The football team is in Buffalo. The Bills. What a big numbers this week. 8.5 points to the football team with Heineke. Meiselman.
I think this is about right. I don't really have a strong take on this game. Like, the Bills have a terrible game under their belt and a great game under their belt. And I don't really think we can read much into Washington yet. They've kind of played 2 average games. So I don't know. The Bills are a good team. Washington's a little below average. Like, this line just seems okay.
What do you think, Geoff?
I think it's a little too big. I think Taylor Heineke not getting any respect. He certainly, made some very big plays for Washington. I know he almost blew it too against the Giants, but let's not forget, he also rallied them back into the game. The thing that worries me about Washington is their defense hasn't looked as good as it was supposed to be. But they do have the players there. I'm confident this is still a good defense, and I'm confident that this line is just too big for them long-term. I think to be able to move the ball a little bit on the ground at the very least. I'm not in love with this because Josh Allen could just show up. And if the Bills from last year show up, this could easily be. I'm with Matt. I think this is a very good line. I would lean Washington. This is a game I probably don't want to touch, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Yeah. Buffalo came back to earth in a positive way last time out. Let's move a little quicker here because we got to move. We're still in the 1 o'clock slate. Chicago and Cleveland, Geoff. 7.5 is the line. Of course, we have to figure out who the quarterback is. Matt Nagy says it's going to be Andy Dalton if he's healthy.
Yeah, this is one I'm just waiting on. If Justin Fields starts, I'll take the Bears. If Andy Dalton starts, I'll take the Browns. It's a little big, but I definitely favor the Browns with Dalton. This is all about the quarterback for me.
Matt, what's up?
I kind of agree with the sentiment. I don't think there's that much of a difference between Dalton and Fields yet. I mean, obviously there's difference in the way that they'll get their production, but I don't know that Fields is ready to be good yet. He might need some time. There's going to be some learning curve for him. So I probably think this is pretty fair either way, with whichever quarterback starts for the Bears.
Time to go mobile with Justin Fields. He'll run a lot. He ran around yesterday. Okay, Colts Titans. Come on, it's got to be. This 5.5. This feels just about right to me. What do you think, Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, and just on the Bears one, I just think there's better chance that Fields gets back in that garbage time than Andy Dalton, if that makes any sense. And he uses his wheels to get the garbage time. We already talked about the Colts. This one, I would wait on this one. I think once Eason gets named the starter, it'll bump to 6.5, maybe 7. Then you take the Colts. There's no difference between Wentz and Eason. You might even get a better performance out of Eason than Wentz. So give me the Colts here.
Okay. Matt, go ahead. You guys just go ahead. Keep going, you know?
Yeah, I'll just agree with all of that for Colts Titans. So I'm ready for this Giants game.
Yeah. Okay. What do you got? 3.5-point favorites, the Giants.
I'm just ready to watch it and see who gives away the game more. This is like a battle to lose the way these teams have played so far. Like, although the Giants didn't really deserve to get an offsides penalty called on the field goal at the end of the game, like they weren't offside. So I don't know whose fault that is besides the officials. But yeah, I mean, I think that maybe it's like a little masochistic to want to watch this game for the reasons that I'm suggesting, but this one should be fun, I think.
Geoff?
I guess I'll take the points with Atlanta. If this came down to like 2.5 or 3, I'd take the Giants. But right now, you just take the points because Matt's pretty much labeled out. These two teams are both just ridiculous.
Okay. Steelers, 4.5-point favorites, division game, home, Cincinnati.
I think this is probably a bit low. I think there's a lot of variance with both these teams. Like Joe Burrow is going to be inconsistent. I don't really know if I think Roethlisberger is any better than last year. Like we saw him have the first half where he was good, but probably not as good as the Steelers 11-0 record was. Certainly not as good as that. And then he probably isn't as bad as he was down the stretch either. I think we see more up and downs throughout this season, although Deontay Johnson did get hurt on the final play of the game, and that could have a pretty big impact if he's out. Do you guys know if there was an update that came of that yet? I feel like we haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything, but maybe Glash has some. Yeah, it's questionable. It's a good point. Steelers do have a pretty deep wide receiver crew, so I'm not as worried about it as Matt. I think I agree. It's a little low. Both these teams have been inconsistent. One, obviously they're 1-1. I trust the Steelers a little bit more here. The Bengals, the O-line is still a huge issue. I still don't think they figured out how to use Joe Burrow and get the quick passes. I just trust the Steelers a little bit more in the spot to cover.
Mike Garafolo reporting today, not a serious injury.
There you go.
It was 5 hours ago. Status, first the Bengals, TBD. Not long-term for Deontay Johnson. Okay, Ravens, Lions. Let's just go quick here and then try to wrap because we got to get to tonight. So what do you think? Ravens, Lions, 9 points going to the Lions.
Ravens.
Meiselman?
I'll go with a push, but we'll see how the Lions look.
Okay, we'll see. Chargers, Chiefs. Chiefs are losing 6.5, Matt.
This is interesting because this line was above 7 before last night's game. And I do think there are real concerns on the Chiefs defense specifically. I don't know that I still like it anymore at 6.5, but I do think the move from above 7 down to below 7 is justified.
Go ahead, Geoff.
Give me the Chiefs. I think they bounce back. I think they're finally going to put together like a really solid game here.
Good point. Okay, it can't get any worse for Zach Wilson, right? 11-point dogs against Denver. I know Denver's got a good roster, but geez, 11, Geoff, is that too many points?
No, it's not. Denver's a really, really good defense. They're a good team, and they're going to cover this. And Zach Wilson might throw 4 picks.
Zach Wilson, Matt, in the altitude.
I agree with Jeff's analysis, but I still think the line's too high, actually. Even with all that said, it's too many points.
Okay, I'm interested now to hear what you have to say about Green Bay and Detroit. All right, 3 more to go. Tampa in LA. Tom Brady's first game as a starting quarterback in Los Angeles. 1 point underdog Tampa Bay, Geoff.
Yeah, they should be. Rams going to win and cover.
Matt?
I'm really torn on this one. I kind of want to just pass here, but I feel like this should be a really exciting game. It should be really close. Am I allowed to do that? Do we have a pass button?
We'll work on that.
Absolutely not. Make a decision, you coward.
I'll pick the Bucks to lose. Well, yeah, I'll pick the Bucks.
I think the true idea here is just to kind of gauge if the line is right. What was this line? It was this was like a pick'em, right? Wasn't it like last week? And this is still a pick'em.
I think the line is slightly too low. I think it should be more. Rams should be closer to 3. So it's slightly too low right here.
Okay. I think we had it at 1.5 originally. So that's why I was going to give the cop out answer and say like Bucks barely cover with a 1 point loss. But yeah, it feels fair to me.
I'm curious how this looks during the week. I'm really curious. People are taking the cheese on Stafford. Okay, Seahawks at Minnesota. Highest total, 55 points. No shocker there. Minnesota, home dog, getting a point, Meiselman.
I think this is fair too. I think my inclination is to lean Vikings, but I'm not overly excited about it. Like this is a team that's hard to pinpoint, I feel like. And the same is true of the Seahawks. Like both have had really inconsistent defenses. I just don't know what to make of either side of this.
Hawks, this one is way too low for me. This should be Hawks should be -3.
I agree. Seattle, they'll bounce back too after that wretched loss last week. Okay, 2 left. The Green Bay San Francisco matchup that we all love. Well, we'll find out tonight if they're 0-2. Green Bay should be.
I think I'll just do this one quick. I think it's a great spot to bet Green Bay right now before this game. All the 49ers running backs are injured. 4 points. Aaron Rodgers. Are you kidding me? Now, this is the one you want to get on. 4 points.
Yep.
Green Bay.
Jeff's worried. Jeff, like Steve Buchanan, is making the mistake. He's worried about the running backs. Come on,
Yeah,
Raheem Mostert inserted.
They're all banged up now, though. Glass. They used to have 4. Now they have none. Like they're
Come on, they brought in Lamar Miller, and they brought in
great Lamar Miller.
Yeah, and
like 40.
What's his name? Who's the other guy they brought in? The
Duke
TJ
Johnson, is that the other one?
Yeldon. They brought in Yeldon.
Yikes.
Okay. I don't care about the running backs at all, but I still agree that the Packers are an opportunity here before they look good against the Lions and this line shrinks.
That's bias of how they've met previously, and that's why that's where it is right now. I think that line, but you guys are probably right. I'm just poking the bear. Last one, Philly, Dallas Cowboys 4-point favorites at home after a win against the Chargers. Jeff.
I'll take the points here. I don't really like this. I don't really have a huge thought in this game yet, but I take the points. I just don't trust Dallas to cover. The defense just, ugh.
All right, Matt, take us home.
I probably lean that way. I think this line is close to right though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's similar for me too, where if I had to pick, I'd go Eagles, but yeah, this seems about right.
Okay. Awesome. Good stuff. Just a nice way to move on to the following week. That was fun. Okay. Let's look at tonight. Where do we want to start? Want to start DFS strategy for tonight? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do some showdown.
So we got the showdown tonight. We were just chit-chatting about this before we went live. It is, you find that the 3 Packers at the top of the list there, Meiselman: Adams, Rodgers, Jones. 3 most expensive. Then it's Jared Goff. And then, as we discussed, who in the world is Jared Goff throwing the ball to besides TJ Hawkinson? Like what is let's start captain. We'll work our way to some value, which I'm sure we'll find in Detroit.
Okay, so I'm definitely trying to avoid playing Aaron Rodgers at captain because I think that there's just too much of that, and someone in this game probably outscores him. If Rodgers has a big game, then it likely means that Devontae Adams also had a big game, and like I'd rather just play Adams at captain. But I do think it a lot of it just comes down to the fact that Rodgers and Adams will both be really popular captains, and you can get Aaron Jones at an ownership discount. So I think my favorite captain choice for this game is probably Jones for that reason. It's a hard game to read though, and there's so many receivers that we have no idea what their target share or even playing time will be like. And it's just like, it's a really weird game. Like this is a game where I feel like you'd want to just have more lineups in the pool or just skip it entirely, right? Like it feels like one of those where it's just so hard to pinpoint, but we have these really reliable guys at the top. So yeah, it's not like you fade Rodgers. Like I think I'd want him in the flex in any lineup I make, but I want to avoid him at captain and maybe play Adams, Jones, maybe Swift. People get scared off of him because of the injury concerns. So I think my 2 favorite, yeah, Jones and Swift, but I think Adams is a fine choice too.
Okay, and just to fill people in before we get Jeff's thoughts, DeAndre Swift, the running backs coach, who I'm drawing a blank on his name. Let me find his name here. Oh, here he is.
Deuce Staley.
His name is Deuce Staley. Yep. And Deuce said no concern about Swift. They don't think they'll need to manage his repetitions going forward. It's a lingering groin. We think he will start. Jeff, do you have to play these top 3 Packers? Is that definitely something you have to do?
I guess I could almost see Aaron Rodgers not being the one that doesn't factor in, if that makes sense, just because I think Aaron Jones is in like a multi-touchdown spot. Maybe they get a defensive score. Maybe like Devontae Adams finds the end zone once. But I completely on the same page as Matt. I like going Aaron Jones at the captain spot. I think this is a cleanup spot for him. Detroit, they just allowed a 5th-round draft pick to run all over them, et cetera. I know it's different teams, and San Francisco's run offense is really good, but this is a spot where the Packers are going to get Aaron Jones going. Aaron Jones has averaged over 5 yards per carry in 3 of his first 4 years. I like coming back with the Detroit running backs as well. I actually think maybe you just play both Detroit running backs if you want to be a little bit unique, and then you stack the rest of the Packers as you can. I think where you're probably going to be able to separate yourself tonight is on the secondary wide receivers on Green Bay: Lazard, Valdez-Scantling, and maybe even Randall Cobb.
Who's your favorite play there? Well, Geoff, we'll keep it with you. Who's your favorite Green Bay guy?
I think for the big tournaments, it's going to be Lazard. I think most people are going to go to Valdez-Scantling, see those 8 targets. Lazard played more snaps than Valdez-Scantling. He's still a better player, if we're being honest. So,
Matt?
Mine is probably Randall Cobb. I think, like, I don't know that I would bet on this, but no one's going to play Randall Cobb, or at least like he'll be 10% at most, because he didn't do anything in week 1. But I feel like the Packers want to write. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's $2,000. Randall Cobb.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very cheap. So like he could get some attention just because of the price. But I feel like if the Packers want to right the ship, maybe putting the veteran presence on the field makes some sense. I don't know. It's more about the fact that he's likely very contrarian because he did nothing the previous week, and he's 4th in the pecking order for receivers there. But I also have sort of a gut feeling that Jamal Williams ends up more popular than DeAndre Swift, because of the injury concerns and because of the revenge narrative, which I know people care a lot about. So I'm not going to say whether that does or doesn't matter. I'll leave that to you two, but I think it will matter as far as how much he's rostered. And if Williams is 40% owned and Swift is 33 or something, Swift is my favorite play on the slate. So I think it's definitely worth at least thinking about that.
Okay, interesting. And by the way, just a thought on Randall Cobb. You look at his stat line. That's like a Madden sim day for Randall Cobb. Just one random catch for 30 yards as the wideout 4 with the Texans. That's the guy Aaron was barking about. He needed more help. So we'll see, Geoff. We'll see if his buddy Randall Cobb can help him out tonight. Jamal Williams. Okay, this kind of nice segue now into. And I know we only have a couple minutes left here, but. Are you interested in? I know Julian Edlow wrote about this today on DK Nation. He's interested in Jamal Williams and his receptions prop. It's at 2.5. Are you looking props tonight? Look, this 11-point number or 12-point number is interesting to me. I think a lot of folks are taking the points. They want the points. They think it's too big. And I look at the 2 games from yesterday: Cleveland and Houston. Houston kept up. I know Atlanta looked awful. Sloppy Joe at the end of that football game yesterday, but Atlanta kept it close. That was a double-digit spread yesterday, so I feel like that's why folks might be more interested in Detroit. Geoff, from a sports betting perspective, looking at the handle and the percentage of bets, also a lot of people think this is going to be under 50 points because I think there's concern of Detroit keeping up, right?
Sure, a little bit of sloppy weather too.
Yeah.
The total isn't one I'm super pumped about because we have to rely on the Lions here. And yeah, what do the Packers do if they get up? Do they just keep the pedal to the metal? They just try and, close this game out and move on to next week. I see the argument for the under. I just don't really want to take it. If I was really, you got to pick a side here, Geoff, I would actually go over because I think the Packers are going to score a ton of points tonight. And you could see, I think they're just going to pour it on. I think they know what they did, and I think it's going to start early and often. And I think you're just going to see a game similar to what you saw with San Francisco last week. It's just going to be slightly slower pace, and you're just not going to see as much garbage time. But I think it's really going to approach that number regardless. And I just don't really want to be in an under situation there. So not
you're
really
the over guy.
Yeah, I am the over guy, but this is just one I just don't want to bet at all.
So Meiselman, you're into Swift in the showdown. Does that mean you want to mess around with with some of his props tonight?
I love Swiss props too, but I'll let Matt talk about it.
Okay.
No, I think I do too. I think Swift and Randall Cobb, if I'm going to bet overs on anyone, it's probably those 2 guys. Cobb is tough because he may not get on the field. And I don't actually know if we have any props for him. So
for who?
Yeah, that also makes it tough. But Swift, for sure, there's tons of stuff available. Obviously, I have to make sure that he's playing and coaches don't say anything about him having limited workload, but I don't think that's going to be the case. As far as spread and total, I just feel like these are fair. And the thing that happens is once this game's over, whoever won bets on this is just it's going to seem so obvious to them that they were on the right side. Just because the Packers win by 33 points doesn't mean they were the right bet. And just because the Lions, end up losing 27-24 doesn't mean they were the right bet either. But I do think these numbers are generally fair. Swift does seem like the guy who's being undervalued. Then again, like maybe the Lions decide that they care that this is a revenge game for Jamal Williams, right? Like what if that happens? That would just throw a wrench into the whole game plan for everything that I'm kind of talking about. So I'm definitely just a little worried about this game. Like there's not a clear betting angle that I feel comfortable with, which is kind of why I like the showdown format better as far as driving value, because you can just capitalize on what the field is doing. You don't have to try to beat the sportsbook line. So I think there's just more edge to be had there, because this is a game with a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I think that exists for the Packers receivers. I think it exists for the Lions running backs. And then we haven't talked about these guys yet, but the uncertainty with the Lions receivers is like, who's even starting for them? We have no idea. So I feel like showdown is the way to get your edge there and just try to play the guys that no one else does.
Okay. Yeah. Jeff, we don't even have props for some of these Detroit receivers. I mean, St. Brown's at 3.5, Swift 4.5, Hawkinson 5.5, and those all have plus money. So
yeah, no, it's a tough one. I like the over on DeAndre Swift's receiving yards personally. I think it was 28.5. That's probably the one I would take for Swift, just because he's explosive. He gets one little garbage time run and that's it, or garbage time catch and that's it. But yeah, I think I think we're kind of out of time here. So
yeah. That's it. We packed in a lot there. You know what? That's what happens when we go to overtime in the sim. You know, you gotta.
We didn't even have time to talk about Trinity Benson or whoever else maybe
Cephas.
A chalk showdown play. Yeah, like those guys may end up being popular. I really don't know.
Pick one right now before we go.
I will go with. Who are you taking? I'll try to pick.
I'm taking Trinity. That would be
okay. I think I'm going to pick Cephas. I think more people take Trinity and St. Brown, and Cephas will also play, and less people have it.
Okay. Sounds good. Great stuff. Geoff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman, Brendan Glasheen. Thanks to Eamon and Daniel behind the scenes today on the Slate. Packed a lot in there in 40 minutes. So we thank you for hanging out and joining us. Best of luck with your bets tonight. And also, as Meiselman suggested, get in on the showdown. Get in on the Millie Maker. It is available tonight. There is a Millie Maker on DraftKings. So get involved. And if the Packers are 0-2, I'm actually here for it. I want to see what happens to the internet tonight and tomorrow if the Packers lose. But that's why they play the games. We'll find out. Best of luck. Thanks for watching the Slate.